Okay, so this is a games pickups video, and this is stuff I've bought in the last few weeks. Some of it's on eBay, some of it was from CEX, which if you're not from the UK you might not know. It's basically like a game shop, but it's all second-hand games and hardware. They do cameras and things like that as well. There's cash converters, which is pretty much the same thing, only for some reason they sell loads of guns and fishing equipment as well. It's a really fun store, cash converters. Anyway, this is all stuff that I've bought. None of it I've paid, in fact some of it I've paid next to nothing for. But very little money, much less than perhaps I should have for some of the things. The eBay stuff definitely, because see previous video. Now, where to begin? This is always the fun bit. I'll start with the more up-to-date stuff-ish. Manhunt. Now, this is a game by Rockstar. I do have the promotional unrated edition of this, before they changed some of the bits and re-released it as an 18. Because this is a game that the unrated edition was pretty much banned, and they had to rework some of the stuff and get it back to store shelves a week later, with an 18 certificate on it. So I'd quite like to play this just out of interest to see what they did change, because I'm not actually sure. And there's no way you're going to get most of that on YouTube. I suppose you could look hard for it. But yeah, so I'm actually quite interested in playing this. What's this one? Hyperdimension Neptunia Mark II. Now, this is reasonably hard to find. I found it in cash converters for, I can't remember, but not very much at all, because if it was very much money I wouldn't have bought it, because I'm quite cheap. Yeah, looking forward to playing that. What have we got next? God of War 3. Don't need to explain this game. Most people have played it. I have played it, I just didn't own it. So, Yakuza 3. I played the first one. I haven't played the second one because I don't have the second one. And it's quite good. It's like sort of Grand Theft Auto Japan, but with less cars, as I recall. So, oh, and funnily enough, I didn't know, but sort of shoved inside here was a second CD with the soundtrack on it. So I don't think it's in its original box. I bought this in a second-hand shop, and I think they've put it in a new box, because there doesn't appear to be a space for the soundtrack CD to go. But that was in the box, just floating around. So that might be worth a listen. Now, Medieval Moves. I've never heard of this game, but this here always makes me buy one. There's a lot of stuff that's PlayStation Move compatible, i.e. it will work with normal controllers and the PlayStation Move. Now, I happen to have a PlayStation Move, and incidentally, at the time I'm uploading this video, if you're interested at all in owning one, buy one now, because when VR comes out, they're going to jump up in price, because it's part of the VR set. You're going to need to have a Move, right? I suspect they're going to jump up in price. They're cheap at the moment because nobody wants them. As soon as anyone wants them, they're going to jump up. That's incidental to this video. Yeah, so when I see required in big bold letters like this, I go, ooh, I'll buy this, because you don't see loads of these. And I can actually play them, because I'm one of the few people in the Western world that has a PlayStation Move. Everyone else seems to have sold them, or you know, given them to the dog to chew or something. Nobody seems to like them. By the way, brilliant for light gun games, and they work on a new telly. Don't know if anyone knew that, but it's true. Anyway, Dark Souls 2. This is new, absolutely new. It was in Game, which is a retailer in Britain, and yeah, as you can see, it's got all the add-on content. If I want it, it's still in the shrink wrap. This was £10. They were throwing this away, basically. When I went into Game, they had about half a dozen of them on the shelf, and they were £10 each. So obviously, they were just making space. But you know, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, apparently it's some sort of special edition, I imagine due to the downloadable content more than anything else. But I haven't played Dark Souls 2, so now I can. What else? I'll leave that one for a minute and go through the Wii stuff. This was all charity shop pickups. Star Wars The Complete Saga. Lego Star Wars, rather. The Complete Saga, and that seems to be everything from the first 6 films, but sort of Lego-fied. So I don't need to explain Lego or Star Wars to anyone on YouTube. There's 100 billion videos of Lego and Star Wars. We play. Now it's interesting, this one, because yeah, not to be sold separately. Now, as far as I'm aware, this didn't come with any of the boxed Wiis. As far as I'm aware, there was a Wii Sports, a Wii Fit, there was a Mario All-Stars version, etc, etc. And now, I don't recall ever seeing a boxed Wii that came with Wii Play, so I wonder what it's not to be sold separately from. I only got this morning, so I'm going to have to do some research. But yeah, that always piques my interest when I see that not to be sold separately. I always think, to what? Now you've got me intrigued. So I'll have to look into that. Pirates of the Caribbean Lego version. Again, no need to explain Lego or Pirates of the Caribbean to anyone that will be watching YouTube. Star Wars The Force Unleashed. Now, I've got this on the PlayStation 3, but it was so cheap in the charity shop that I couldn't say no. So, I'm going to have to play it with an actual thing, a swishy controller. Because obviously the PlayStation 3, you're playing it on a pad, and at least with a Wii controller, you can make the noises and pretend you've got a lightsaber. So, hours of fun in that. Now, as we head back the years, I think I mentioned on the eBay video already, Nintendo DS browser. Now, not very useful, I know, but this is the bit I was actually after for my DS Lite, which is the memory expansion pack. Now, you'll see a lot of these on eBay without the memory expansion pack. This was the bit I was actually after, and this is the DS Lite version. If you buy the original DS version, the expansion pack is bigger. Although apparently it does work in a DS Lite, I don't know. I wanted something that fit. So these are as common as a very common thing that escapes me. You can find these, and but it will turn up and it'll only have the browser cartridge. What you're really after is that memory expansion, and that goes whether you have a DS or a DS Lite. Get this for the memory expansion alone. Right, where are we? Tetris 2 Game Boy. I don't have a Game Boy, but I do have a Super Game Boy for the Super Nintendo, and this is one of the very few, I don't know if you can see that, if I try and get it a bit closer, it's maybe not that visible, but this little black box here tells me that this game is specifically Super Game Boy compatible. That usually means an extra wallpaper around the edge as you're playing, but sometimes it can mean lots of different colours and sometimes new features as well, so keep a good eye on that. And that's going in the box of retro goodies in a minute. Right, what have we bought? let's go through this as best order I can. Yeah, Super Game Boy cartridge. Picked it up off eBay and absolutely chuffed with it. What else is there? Another Game Boy game, The Amazing Spider-Man. Picked that up off eBay very cheap. Reasonably old game for the Game Boy. The original Tetris, again, got that very cheap. Everyone and their mother owns a copy of this game. If it's going for any more than a couple of quid, don't even bother, because there'll be a million of them. It was shipped with every Game Boy, so there's no shortage of these. Don't if you go online and somebody's got Tetris Rare, absolute bollocks. Action Replay cartridge. Now, these are good for two reasons. Number one, obviously you can add cheats. Everyone knows that about Action Replay. It's basically like a Game Genie. Only the codes don't work for Game Genie. You have to actually use Action Replay codes. I got this cartridge only. It was hell of a cheap. But the other thing is as well, if you plug a game in the back here, a PAL game, you can then play US and Japanese games in the top. So PAL game in here, and it becomes basically a universal adapter as well as a cheap device, which is really handy. What else did we get? Yeah, Exhaust Heat, Japanese version. Because why spend the money for PAL when it's not going to make a difference? Exhaust Heat 2, Japanese version, for the same reason. Mystery Circle, Japanese version. I don't think there is a PAL version of this game, so that's handy. This is like a cross between Tetris and Quicks. You have to draw around the bricks to make them disappear. It's actually explaining it is more complicated than just doing it. If you get my meaning. It would take me longer to explain what to do than if you just went, oh, that's what it is. Super Soccer, very early game. In fact, this was a day one release, I believe, for the Super Nintendo, and this is in pretty good nick, and it did turn up with an instruction book. No box, but I don't care about that. But I'll probably keep the instruction book somewhere safe and do nothing with it, probably not even bother reading it. Theme Park Super Nintendo. I mean, what do you say about Theme Park? Everyone knows this game. It's like the precursor to Roller Coaster Tycoon. Very simplistic version, but a lot of fun nonetheless. SimCity, Super Nintendo. Again, everyone knows SimCity. No point in explaining that. What else? Stunt Race FX. Now, this is one of the few games where you actually have to buy the PAL version of, because even through an adapter, because it has a Super FX chip in here, it won't run through, unless anyone knows any different from me. Games with these chips don't run through universal adapters, so you have to buy the PAL version, unfortunately. But that was, I think, less than a £5, so quite pleased about that. It's not a very good game, but at least it is playable. 3x3i's. Now, I bought this A because it was cheap, and B because I've actually heard of the franchise. I remember watching the anime movies of this in the 90s. It was quite popular at the time, and people don't remember it, and I'm hoping it's not too RPG-y, because obviously it is a Japanese game, and if there's lots of text to read, I'm not going to have a clue what to do. But I thought, hey, I remember this series fondly, I may as well buy the game. It was about £2.50, so including delivery. Final Fantasy V. Now, I do like Final Fantasy games. I have a big, well, not big, reasonable collection of Final Fantasy stuff. It's one of my favourite franchises, and even when I was collecting Super Nintendo stuff years ago, this, for some reason, I suspect the reason being that it wasn't ever released here, was a very expensive game. It's dropped in price It really has fallen like a stone. I think when I was looking for a copy of this game in, when would it have been? It would have been sometime in the late 90s when I started building up my Final Fantasy stuff. And I think a boxed copy of this, yeah, I mean, you couldn't find it for less than 40 quid, and I wasn't willing to pay that kind of money. But now I got this cartridge only, and I think it was just over a £5, including postage. Now I have already played this on the PlayStation 1 since then, on the Final Fantasy Anthology disc, I think it is. So I could probably try and remember what to do. Yeah. And I think the last one is a Mega Drive game, Another World, which was called, it was only called Another World in Europe. I think it was called Out of This World in the US and possibly in Japan as well. But this is a fantastic game. The Super Nintendo version was arguably better and played a bit faster, but nonetheless this is brilliant. If you've played Flashback or anything like that, this is basically the same thing. It's yeah, I mean there are other games in here, but they're not recent acquisitions. I'm not even sure when I got this. I think I found this in a box as I was tidying up the other day, the Nintendo 64 Game Boy adapter. I think it only works with Pokemon games, and I don't have any of them. And as far as I know, even when I had a Nintendo 64, I never had any of the Pokemon games, so I have no idea why I have this. It's obviously something I've picked up at a boot sale at some point, thrown it in a box, and I found it the other week as I was going through some things. Because you can't tell from the view I'm giving you, but this place is absolute mess with games and collectibles and things like that. Now, as I pack this stuff away, I want to mention one more thing. Now, it's not strictly, well, I suppose it is a bit. It's not strictly a retro game or anything like that, but it is something I picked up, and I'm quite pleased to have done so. And this was, I think, about £10 I paid for this. Barcode Battler. Now, if nobody knows what this is, what it does is you can scan in it comes with pre-packed cards, and this is all complete. Got the cards in it. It's got the packing foam and everything. What do you call it? Polystyrene. And I haven't actually tried it out yet because, again, this only arrived today. But it's got all these cards, and all of these have barcodes on them. And you might be saying, "Oh, well, big deal. That's not that fun. You know, what it is, swipe the cards through and play a sort of RPG battle on the screen." But I wanted one of these for three reasons really. When this came out, I didn't get one. I don't know anyone that got one. I've never actually used one before, and I think the simple reason why was when this came out, it was about £100. Now, this came out in either 91 or 92, depending on which Wikipedia page you go to, because they're both different. So that would mean that if you had a birthday or it was Christmas coming up in that year, and your parents said to you, you know, do you want a game system? Oh yeah, I do want a game system. Right, well there's a Mega Drive over here, or there's a Super Nintendo here, or there's a Barcode Battler. Which one do you want? Obviously you picked the Nintendo or the Sega, didn't you? Nobody had one of these. I don't know anyone that had one. So that was one reason why I wanted it. The other reason is because it's quite RPG-ish, and the good thing about it is it doesn't just take the barcodes that come with it, the barcoded cards. It will take any barcode. I mean, you could cut the barcode off your packet of Polo Mints and swipe it through here, and it might give you levels or hit points or something like that. So that's pretty fun. I mean, it will literally take a barcode from anything and turn it into something. The other reason is that as I was researching this, Apparently, now I can't get this verified by anyone because there seems to be very few people online that have tried this. Apparently, this will work with a Super Nintendo or a Super Famicom, and there were games released for the Super Nintendo and the Super Famicom, for the Super Famicom anyway, because they were only released in Japan, that will use this as an interface for actually playing the game. So you swipe in barcodes after you've connected this to your Super Nintendo, and it will do things on the game. You know, it will change your statistics on the game, presumably. I mean, I imagine it's basically a Super Nintendo version of the little RPG game that's on here. Now, that means getting a cable that interfaces this with a Super Nintendo, and that's where that's what I've been trying to research this afternoon, not coming up with any joy. Nobody seems to have heard of this, but apparently it was a thing, and if you go on eBay you can see the Famicom games that were compatible with this, but the cable that actually connects the system up, no joy, can't find a thing. So that might be a future video. There's a fella on YouTube who's sadly passed away now, called Justin Carmichael, Jew Wario, you may have seen him, and he did a lot of these barcode type videos. So what I'm probably going to do is watch a few of his videos and see if he mentions any of this, because I know he was a games collector, and he did have quite a few of these Japanese barcode machines. So I'm gonna have a look probably tomorrow and see if he's uploaded anything, because I consider that a trusted source. If Jew Wario's said it's a true thing, I would consider that a trusted source. So I'm going to go and have a look. Obviously, can't email the guy and ask him. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. So at some point in the future, I'm probably going to do a video if I can ever get this thing working. If you never see a video of this thing working, it's because I didn't manage to get it working with the Super Nintendo. So sorry about that. And if a video never turns up, then that's obviously not possible. Anyway, I think that's the end of my pickups. I can't think of anything else I've forgotten. I'm just looking over at the pile of recent acquisitions, and I think I've done all them ones already on a different video. Yes, I think I have. So I'm going to leave it there. And the usual YouTube gubbins. If you like it, then like. If you if you want to see more, subscribe. If any of you watching know anything about how to connect one of these up to a Super Nintendo, or where to get the cables from, or anything like that, please leave a comment or email me or something. You know, or smoke signals outside my window would do. Let me know where these things can be got, and I will get one and I will set it up and try and do a video. You know, or if you want to comment about anything else, that's fine. Just keep it pleasant. And that's about it. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope everyone enjoyed themselves.